What up, gang-a-lang edge? Carolina jackpot time. Chickadee check, 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 check. Check on in. Hey, it is February 19th, 2022, and it's Saturday afternoon. It's also mildly warm up here in the upstate of good old South Kakalaka. So what better time to talk some college football when we got some nice warm weather, right? Yeah. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. The champs are here. The Mayo Bowl champs are here. The women's basketball champs are here. The 1969 ACC champs are here. The champs never forget that. I'm gonna have to smack myself if I do again. So, guys, I mean, really, what has really been going on? You know, this is kind of the dead part of the year before spring practice, after all the college football's done and Super Bowl's over with. I mean, really not a lot to talk about. So, you know, you got to kind of manufacture things to talk about. I just want to talk about the Gamecocks today in the 2022 season. And, you know, what my expectations are. I mean, what I see. I mean, what would make me happy? What would make me sad? What would make me mad? All that good stuff. You know, 2021, I did make a video here a while back talking about, let's not dwell on what happened last year. We got to talk about it for a minute and allude to it. You know, it was a mixed bag for the Gamecocks. I mean, the final record for the Gamecocks did end up being, I think, a lot better than I'm just going to go ahead and say it, to be quite honest with you. I think the final record ended up being a little bit better than what the team really was. There were some games there where there was some promise shown. There were some games there where there were some glaring weaknesses that were showing some huge holes. You know, and I'll talk about a couple of those here in a few minutes. But it seemed like it was really just a Jekyll and Hyde team that really just went out and gave some really poor performances and some, you know, performances that were above average and on par with our peers. So, you know, there's, you know, some positives to derive from that. There's definitely some positives to derive from that bowl game, and I'm not trying to, you know, sound like a naysayer or a glass half empty kind of guy. But you got to kind of look at some of those losses too and really, really, really scratch your head and just ask yourself, what the fuck were we doing out there? I mean, it was absolutely pathetic and piss poor. But last week, Board of Trustees down in South Carolina met to approve, I guess, a contract for the new tight ends coach and doled out some raises. Defensive coordinator Clayton White, special teams coach and assistant head coach Pete Limbo, my guy, he got a raise. Justin Stepp, wide receivers coach, with a raise. Jimmy Lindsay, defensive line coach, gets a raise. Montario Hardesty, of former Vol fame, gets a raise. As does, and this one I'm going to talk about in a sec, Luke Day, strength and conditioning coach, gets a raise. Now, looking at that group of guys, just off of results, if nothing else, as far as on the field results with their players, who really deserved raises there. Well, definitely Clayton White deserved a raise. Guy was making like $900,000 a year. I think it took him up a little bit over the $1.1 million mark. That's some idiot over there on the Gamecock 24/7 site saying, well, you know, there we go with that toxic Ray Tanner culture of just rewarding mediocrity. I know, motherfucker, they're not rewarding mediocrity. If you happen to even read or pick up any kind of preseason publication before 2021, South Carolina's defense was picked to be one of the most piss poor in the SEC. And the reason why is because there was no talent there. Well, guess what? There was still no talent there. For the most part, when this guy takes over, he was able to get the most out of nothing. He was able to squeeze grape juice out of gravel on several of these players. Jalen Foster, a kid who had largely done nothing in his career, bounced around from a couple of schools, comes to South Carolina, was leading the country in interceptions at one point last year. Down the stretch, kind of faltered. I don't think he really had many more. But my point is that Clayton White did a hell of a job with the talent that he had to work with. That guy definitely deserved a raise, and there's a little something called retention there. A little something called retention. Pete Limbo, I mean, special teams at South Carolina, I mean, what can you say? Looked really good most of the year. We saw a couple of block punts against Eastern Illinois to open the season. I mean, I thought we were going to be seeing that kind of stuff all year long, the old Beamer ball stuff. I mean, we really didn't, but we saw a solid special teams unit at South Carolina. Parker White, what can you say? I mean, that guy was absolutely amazing. Punting the ball, South Carolina still in the upper half of the country there. So really some special things on special teams and some good things to look forward to in the future. Limbo also is a guy who's heavily involved in recruiting, and he definitely has earned every penny that he's made. Justin Steps, another guy at the wide receiver position at South Carolina. While, I mean, these guys didn't have a huge year, he did get the most out of Josh Vann, another guy who has been an unknown his entire career. Everybody was wondering for several seasons. I mean, what is this kid doing? I mean, where's he been? I mean, is he ever going to do anything? I mean, and he had a true breakout season last year, was a real leader out there on the outside of that offense. And Justin Stepp, another guy who is an experienced coach. I mean, he's a South Carolina guy. He is still he's experienced yet young enough to relate to the younger generation. He's heavily involved in social media stuff, really, really involved in recruiting. He is a key cog in this wheel that's turning at this particular point in time if we're ever going to get this thing to where it needs to be. Defensive line coach Jimmy Lindsey, I don't really understand that one, really getting a huge bump there. Defensive line did some good things last year, did some bad things as well, and quite honestly underperformed in my opinion. Zach Pickens, a guy who's been there for several seasons, really hadn't lived up to billing, and it's however, he plays on the inside. So, a lot of what he does goes unnoticed. Jordan Birch, former 5-star 2020 class. I mean, everybody wanted him. I mean, he was down to LSU, Clemson, South Carolina, Georgia. He came to South Carolina. Nobody believed it. He was like really silent when it happened. And it's just been a real goddamn weird, career for Jordan Birch at South Carolina so far. I mean, good dude tries to throw a pass last year in the Tennessee game, and not knocking Jordan Birch. That's not his fault. That was just ridiculous play calling on that end. Somebody trying to get some momentum from out of nowhere when there was no reason to. I mean, you could have scored a touchdown in that situation. There was no reason to try, but I'm getting off on a tangent here. Point is, he has not produced like we thought he was going to produce. He's not been the wrecking ball on the outside. He's not been the Jadeveon Clowney 2.0. I mean, he's not even been Bozo the Clown 2.0. I mean, my God. I mean, this guy, and if you look at him in his pictures, and I'm not throwing rocks at the guy either, by no means. I'd never do that to anybody. But at least Jadeveon Clowney looks like he's got some swag to him. And he's projected that, onto the football field. This guy, when you look at him, I mean, he's just all smiles, He's got his little cute glasses on. I mean, he's like, honey bun. I mean, too sweet to be sour. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, guy, it just don't do it for me. I mean, look mean, play mean. Get that damn nasty streak about yourself. God dang. I just, I don't know. So Jimmy Lindsey gets a raise. Jordan Strong, kid comes from Georgia State, had the most sacks in the country in 2020. Did some good things last year, but, didn't repeat those kind of numbers. And then Kingsley J.J. Enigbare, is going to be an NFL draft pick this year. He really didn't do a whole lot last year either. However, everybody knew it was the best player on South Carolina's front up there. They, developed some blocking schemes for him. Plays kind of went away from his side of the field. He was a havoc wreaker in 2019, 2020. So teams weren't going to give him a lot of chances to make big plays. So there may be something to that as well. Montario Hardesty, running backs coach. Another one. I don't know. Running backs didn't perform great. Kevin Harris, hurt a lot majority of the year. Of course, we knew all about that back injury, this and that. Had some surgery before the year started. There's a Quandra White, another virtual unknown kid that came from Florida State as a transfer. Had an amazing season, mostly on his own intestinal fortitude. The kid just played balls out all year long, and I couldn't be happier for him. That young man, I hope he gets drafted, or at least makes a practice squad somewhere. Obviously, I don't think he's as talented as Kevin Harris. I don't think so. Kevin Harris probably going to get picked up. But Kevin Harrison ran angry last year. Ran angry in 2020. He got a lot of those yards on his own, and last year didn't look like the same player. But he was injured a little bit. So Hardesty, his raise, is it justified? Is it not? I'm really not sure. We're kind of right there in the middle on that one. Luke Day, strength and conditioning coach. That's the one I want to talk about. Luke Day, I think, deserves every bit of the pay increase that he received, maybe, and plus more. If you'll remember, during the Will Muschamp era at South Carolina, and only during the Will Muschamp era, it really never had reared its ugly head until then. I don't know, something about him being around and things rearing their ugly heads. They just go hand in hand. But South Carolina had to have been the most injured team in the SEC year in, year out. It didn't matter if it was offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball. It didn't matter what. We always seem to have problems. And a lot of that goes back to strength and conditioning. It goes back to hydration, soft tissue injuries. We had a lot of kids who missed a lot of time. I'll remember the 2018 game against Clemson, the one where South Carolina lost 56-35, put up 500 and something yards of offense, or Jake Bentley did against this vaunted Clemson defense of the Cleveland Farrell and Christian prostate exam Wilkins and all these fuckers. But South Carolina, just kind of, just did their own thing with them, had their way with them. However, we couldn't stop them on when they had the ball. Trevor Lawrence, just carved up that offense like a damn Thanksgiving turkey, or the defense like a Thanksgiving turkey. However, you had like one guy that started the first game of the season that started the last game of the season. Why? Injuries. And I'm just throwing that game out there as an example of one that could have went a different way had you had some more seasoned talent on the field. Luke Day and his staff have done some great things. Obviously, last year, injuries were virtually, it was a non-factor for most of the year. Yeah, I mean, Zaquandre White missed a couple of games here and there. Josh Vann missed a couple here and there. Luke Doty, who was the incumbent starting quarterback, missed significant action last year. I mean, guy got stepped on. I mean, his foot actually got stepped on the first day of fall camp. That has nothing to do with strength and conditioning. That just has to do with someone being unaware of their surroundings, and that was just a mistake. But Luke Day deserves a lot of credit for what happened last year on the field, for some of those wins, and for keeping that team healthy. I mean, that guy really has knocked it out of the park, and he's a special piece here, and I hope they keep him around for a while because I really like him. South Carolina hit the transfer portal pretty hard in the offseason, and we knew that they would have to, and we knew that Shane Beamer was a guy who, with his personality, and kind of his shtick, would be able to land some guys. But I think that most of us were expecting a double, but we got, I feel like, a solid home run in the transfer portal here. And just running down this list of players, I'm going to sit here and tell you right now, Carolina Jackpot does not know a whole heck of a lot about any of these guys. And in fact, haven't really watched them play a whole heck of a lot. Because quite honestly, on Saturdays, I'm focused on a couple or three games. And I'm focused on my Gamecocks. And, even, Austin Stodner and Spencer Rattler both coming from Oklahoma. To be honest with you, the Big 12 game of the week was just not that high on my radar. It just wasn't. But we'll get into them here just for a second, talk about these guys. And I think there may be some diamonds in the rough here with these folks. And I think this class may end up being even better than what it's advertised to be. This video, by the way, is brought to you by Bud Light and High Hopes. Christian Beal Smith, running back, at Wake Forest in a couple of years. Last year, 604 yards, 7 touchdowns. Was Wake's leading running back or leading rusher. In 2020, it's down a little bit from 2020 because we would have played less games against an all-conference schedule. 732 yards. No, they didn't. They played. Did they play? The ACC played one 9-con game, I think, maybe. 2020, 732 yards and 5 touchdowns. So a little bit more yardage in 2020, less touchdowns. He actually last year rushed for about 120 yards less than that little Will Shipley at Clemson. So that's not really real encouraging there on that front when you consider Shipley was hurt for a couple of games. South Carolina needs to get some players that are a little bit better than that character. But was the Kenneth Walker Jr. From Michigan State, came out of nowhere last year. The freaking Heisman Trophy candidate for most of the year. Everybody was like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Came from Wake Forest. Obviously they coach him up right there. Maybe Christian Beal Smith was built in the same mold. 5'10", 200 pounds. He should be kind of, a bowling ball back there in that Gamecock backfield. And give Spencer Rattler some options. Speaking of that, let's get right on into that. Spencer Rattler, 4,500 yards in his career. From 2019 to 2021, really didn't play a lot in 2019 at all. 40 touchdowns, 12 interceptions in his career. 5 of those interceptions were last year, 7 in 2020. However, last year he was benched at halftime of the Texas game, and he never really returned. Was it for performance? Was it for attitude? I'm really not sure. We really don't know. But they insert Caleb Williams. The guy does okay. They come from behind. He leads them to a win over Kansas. Come on. However, I mean, I think, and this is not just me beating the Spencer Rattler drum because he's playing for the Gamecocks now. I think, and I felt this way last year, this Caleb Williams guy is probably one of the more overrated players in the country. I mean, he goes out to Southern Cal. I think these people think they're going to win 9, 10, 11 games, and I just don't see it happening. I think that he's a really good quarterback, but I think he's kind of, limited as far as what he can do. And Rattler, I think was probably the more talented of the two. Just at the time, has fit better. Austin Stogner comes over from Oklahoma as well. 8 career touchdown receptions from the tight end position. 6'6", 250-pounder out of Plano, Texas. Big-bodied kid. Can't hurt to have one of those up front. He was also a 4-star when he came out of high school. Really looking forward to seeing what he can do. Lavisa Carroll is a kid who transfers to South Carolina from Georgia. He was playing defensive back at Georgia. Going to play running back at South Carolina. I believe he was committed to South Carolina for, I think, the 2020 class and decommitted for some reason. He went to Georgia. Or maybe it's the 2021 class. I'm not really sure. Last year, I really saw limited action at Georgia. 3 tackles against Charleston Southern. So that's all you need to know about how far Lavisa was buried on the depth chart. Going to play running back at South Carolina, which was one of his positions in high school. We'll see what this kid can do. Antoine Wells, kid coming in from James Madison. Has been there for a couple of years. Last year, 1,250 yards receiving, with 15 touchdowns, 21 for his career. This guy's a little bit over 6 foot. One of the top receivers in FCS, and I think this could be a sneaky good pickup for South Carolina. And this is not, make a mistake, this is no E.J. Jenkins coming into South Carolina, who, was at 6'8" and whatever. We thought, well, God, ain't nobody's going to be able to defend him, even though he's coming from FCS St. Francis. Look how big his kid is. He didn't really see the field a lot, and didn't get a whole lot of touches, and I blamed that on the coaching staff at the time, and that was in the moment. But I've got to think, there's a reason why he wasn't seeing those touches, and a reason why he wasn't getting targeted. So there's that. I think this guy is going to make an immediate impact and give Spencer Rattler some more options to throw the football to. Devontae Reed coming over from Central Michigan. This is another safety where South Carolina is sorely hurting out. A 4-year starter. This guy like second team all MAC. 3 interceptions for his career from the safety position. Just a solid football player, and glad to have him at South Carolina. And then rounding out the class, Terrell Dawkins from NC State, defensive end, has been there 2020 and 2021. Now, in 2020, he had 4.5 sacks and did some things. Last year, really can't find a lot of stats on him. Looks like he was hurt for most of the season. So, hopefully when coming this year, he'll be able to, get healthy and turn things around. I certainly hope so. Like I said, Jackpot knows very little about these guys other than what I've read about them and just a little bit of film I've watched on them. It's just nothing against them, nothing against their teams. It's just that they all happen to be playing at a time when there were things on that I was more interested in watching. And that's just the bottom line. There are so many college football games on a Saturday, but there's only so many that you can watch. Now, looking here at the opponents for 2022, and just running down this list of games real quick, and in no way am I making a game-by-game prediction video here on February 19th. That may come around August 19th, but definitely not right now. But I just wanted to kind of look at these guys and just kind of size up the schedule a little bit and, see what we're facing. Game 1, Georgia State comes to Columbia. Now, this is a team, last year, 8-game winner. You might not have known that because they started off 1-4. really hit the bricks at the beginning of the season, but Sean Elliott regrouped that team. They came back, ended up winning their bowl game against Ball State, beat Coastal Carolina last year. They were 1-4 at one point, like I said. But this is a team in the past that's had some success on the road against SEC teams. Last year, pushed Auburn really hard deep into the fourth quarter. Had to rely on a backup quarterback to come in and get a come-from-behind victory at home. And then, well, Tennessee, we all know about what you've experienced with Georgia State. This is kind of a little bit of a different feel than both those games, though. Sean Elliott, head coach at Georgia State, former offensive line coach at South Carolina. In 2015, he took over as the interim head coach about a third of the way through the season when Steve Spurrier took his ball and bat and went to the house. He decided to quit on the team. He was tasked with holding this thing together. And in my opinion, he did a pretty damn admirable job. He's been closer to beating Clemson than anybody has in years. Did he lose to the Citadel? Yeah. He also got a couple of wins there. He was a high energy guy. Was a younger guy then. He's matured as a coach now, and he was passed over for the head coaching spot. And from what I understand, it's because he lost to the Citadel. Yeah, you know what? He could be. This is a scary situation. It's a scary game, and he could be looking to come into Columbia and make a statement, and that be driving the old whoo-hoo right down the throat of the Gamecocks. So, do I think South Carolina's going to lose to Georgia State? No. I think this will be like a 45-24 game. I think Spencer Rattler and his crew will get on track in the second half, and this one's really what I could see happening. But I could see them falling behind Georgia State early, getting punched in the mouth once, twice, and then, coming back and getting a decent victory that maybe the final margin doesn't indicate how close that it really was. That's kind of what I see coming into this one. They go to Arkansas the next week. Arkansas, of course, KJ Jefferson returns at quarterback there. They get this transfer, wide receiver Hazelwood in from Oklahoma. Arkansas won not a New Year's Six game, but a New Year's Bowl game last year against a team, Penn State, another one that's kind of near and dear to my heart, the state of Pennsylvania. And, that was a good win for Arkansas. Penn State is a good team. Do I expect Arkansas to win an SEC West title? No, but I do expect them to make some noise over there this year. Sam Pittman has got that team overachieving. He's recruiting at a high level and using the transfer portal to his advantage. And I don't see South Carolina winning that game. I just don't see us going on the road and being able to beat that team as yet. If we could go out there and get a win, and I'm not sure if that'll be played in Little Rock or in the Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium in Fayetteville, but that would be a huge feather in Shane Beamer's cap if he can go out there and get that win over a coach who's doing the same thing that Shane is trying to do, but is kind of maybe a year to 2 years ahead of what Shane is right now. South Carolina has Georgia the next week at home. It's a loss. It is. Georgia's still a ton of talent. We're coming back from that national championship team. Do I think they win a national championship this coming year? I don't know. But, they return, whether you like him or not, you laugh at him or not, still return Stetson Bennett. They return, they've got some talent at quarterback, too, coming off the bench as well, with, the two kids who haven't really played a lot since they've been there, plus Gunner Suck Dick Stockton, the one who decommitted from South Carolina and went to Georgia. So, you know what? He can go himself, and so can his Georgia Bulldogs, but I still think it's just too much talent there. South Carolina's not going to win that game. Georgia returned Cock Bowers at tight end, McConkey, some of these other receivers are still strong on both lines of scrimmage, still strong defensively. Special teams, Jackpot Leslie returning. I don't see South Carolina winning this game at all. It's probably not going to be close. Charlotte at home. South Carolina's going to win that game. Charlotte team last year kind of disappointing. You know, they knocked off Duke early in the season. They're like, hey, we knocked off a Power 5 team. Ooh, even though it was Duke. But then, you know, kind of faltered a little bit down the stretch. That coach there, Will Healy, you know, they call him Young Dabo. For some reason, I don't know, I guess because he's like a big family guy, and he's big into values and this, that, and other, but you know, really kind of disappointing season last year for them. Speaking of non-Power 5 coaches, and I want to talk about this one. This is totally off tangent. I don't understand why somebody did not swoop up Jamie Chadwell from Coastal Carolina yet. I mean, that's just dumb to me. You know, just an exciting brand of offense, exciting brand of football that, you know, you really don't see a lot. But then you got Power 5 programs out here. You got Virginia Tech hiring guys like this Brent Pry. I mean, can there not be a more vanilla wafer stale hire than something called Brent Pry? I mean, I don't understand that. I mean, I don't understand why someone won't give this guy a chance. Now, up here in the upstate of South Carolina, Walt Deptula, radio personality on 105.5, the Clemson station, he said after the 2020 season, and we fired Muschamp, that South Carolina and Ray Tanner fucked up by not going down to Conway and dumping a big boatload of cash in this guy's office and making him and his quarterback and everybody else come to South Carolina. That, I don't know. I mean, maybe a little bit far-fetched, but then last year, he went back and almost repeated the same results. It was a team, it wasn't quite as good, but it was almost as good. So I don't understand why nobody's giving him a chance yet. You know, we got Florida out here hiring Billy Napier, who, you know, to that point, we'll talk about him in a minute. You know, looks like a good coach. He looks like he knows what he's doing, but really doesn't bring a lot of personality or swag to the table, in my opinion. I think Chadwell does. Chadwell's also, he's kind of underneath, kind of a little sneaky, kind of greasy guy. If you'll remember when he was a head coach at Charleston Southern in FCS, you probably don't. But he was, and they kind of got involved in a little scheme with the players where I don't know, it was like they were doing something with their school books and they were making money off of, I don't remember what, but anyway, he did some shit, and that's been one of the knocks on him, but I don't understand that one. Anyway, I think South Carolina beats UNC Charlotte. South Carolina State the next week, obviously win. That team's going to be way outmatched by South Carolina. Next week, South Carolina goes on the road to Kentucky. Yeah, I'm going to look at this one. I'm going to tell you, Kentucky seems to be another team like Mark Stoops. He does the most with, you know, very little every year. You know, their quarterback, Will Levis, is coming back for another season. They got to replace some people at some of the skill positions, got to replace some on defense. But, you know, I think they'll still be solid. I mean, they've been solid for the past few years. And, you know, it's a road game, and this is one of those monkey off our back games. I'm going to talk about this a little more throughout the rest of this video. It's a monkey off our back game. That, you know, South Carolina needs to beat Kentucky. I mean, South Carolina was known for beating Kentucky up until 2014. I mean, South Carolina, even the shitty teams we had, would beat Kentucky. I mean, you could count on that happening, and it just, ever since then, it has just become something that just doesn't happen anymore. And it's like they have switched roles, you know, and Kentucky's the spoiler, and South Carolina is, you know, just in the muddy middle, just trying to find a place here. So, at this point, I don't have a lot of real high hopes for this game, especially on the road. I mean, I think Kentucky's probably going to win it. I mean, despite the fact that, they will be losing some people, they're going to be adding some too. It's not like they're going to roll over and play dead. The human baked potato, as I like to call him, Mark Stoops, he's not a rookie to this head coaching game thing anymore, okay? I mean, he's just not. So you're going to come home after a week off, play Texas A&M. Last year, that had to be the most abysmal performance that I saw all year. I mean, South Carolina, loses that game by like 44-11 to a Texas A&M team that, yes, they were decent. But this team, early in the season and throughout parts of the season was just a real wet fart. They lost to Ole Miss, lost to LSU, lost to Mississippi State at home, lost to Arkansas, and almost lost to fucking Colorado. What the fuck? And South Carolina plays them. I mean, it's just a thing in 2020 and 2021. It's just like they see them, and it's like they're standing in front of a freight train, and everybody else sees Texas A&M coming towards them as a Lionel toy train. The Gamecocks see them come towards them, and it's like they're standing full on the tracks. That's a Norfolk Southern engine coming at you 150 miles an hour that's going to run you the fuck over. That's what it looks like when we play Texas A&M versus when everybody else plays. And so South Carolina, that's another monkey off your back game. They need to get this figured out. I think it's up here more than it is physical. I think it is. Now, do I think South Carolina matches up well with Texas A&M? No, I don't. I don't think they match up well with them on the lines of scrimmage. And really, that's where the issues have been. Number one recruiting class in the country this year in 2022. Jimbo Fisher, got to give it up for the old boy. He really has reeled them in. He got like 7 5-stars on that thing. So that bodes very well for them in 2023, 24, 25, 26. 2022, you still got a chance. Go out there and make something out of it. Of course, didn't play in a bowl game last year. Team had COVID issues. Missouri at home. So I think that's probably a loss. Missouri at home, they recruit, somehow or another, get the number one wide receiver in the country, Luther Burton, one of the best wide receivers in the country, Luther Burton, to come to Columbia, Missouri. Only problem is they have no quarterback to throw in the ball. They got some kid named Sam Roach that is, I guess an incoming freshman or something. But those other 2 quarterbacks they had looked like hammered dog shit. Of course, my folk hero, Connor Bedazzled Sack, who came on the scene in 2020 and just really brought that big dick energy and willed them to some wins over teams that they shouldn't have beat. Kind of came down to reality last year and really just looked like an average Joe Schmo, and he transfers out. You got running back issues. Tyler Beatty, your best player, is gone. You got a new defensive coordinator. Steve Wilkes, your former one, went to back to the NFL. Coached the defense of the Carolina Panthers. Not that he was worth a fuck anyway. So you got problems at Mizzou, and South Carolina should be able to win that game. Last year they should have been able to win that game too, and they didn't. So, anything's possible. I would put that in the win column right now if you put that gun to head for me. At Vanderbilt, last 2-10 last year, horrible team. However, South Carolina plays them midway through the season. You have to bring 95-year-old Zeb Noland off the bench to lead you to a come from, and Clayton White's defense to lead you to a come from behind victory over which Vanderbilt hadn't had. They normally have a pretty bad football team. Let's just go on ahead and say it. Probably the worst Vanderbilt team that we've seen since before James Franklin. And this team was even worse to me than the team that went 0-10 or 0-9 in Derek Mason's final season. You know why? Because I almost lost to fucking UConn at home. 30-28 beats UConn. The other win was a road win over that juggernaut called Colorado State. But with Vanderbilt, they did fight down the stretch, which you will see them do every year. Close losses to Mississippi State. They played well against Mizzou. Could have beaten them if things had gone their way. Scored some points against Kentucky. Scored some points and moved the ball against Tennessee. So not all is lost at Vanderbilt, and eventually they are going to break this losing streak to South Carolina, which has extended since 2009 or 8. I can't remember. 2008 was the last time South Carolina lost to Vandy. Before last year of George W. Bush's presidency. But it's going to end at some point in time. I think South Carolina over Vandy and Alabama over, who is it? Yeah, Tennessee. I think it was the two longest win streaks in the SEC amongst teams that play every year right now. Interesting. I think South Carolina goes to Trashville and gets a win again this year, though. I don't think Clark Lee's quite got them to where they need to be. Go on the road to Florida. A huge toss-up game. Nobody knows what you're going to get here. Emory Jones transferred out of Florida. Anthony Richardson, I'm guessing, is going to be the quarterback. I mean, they got a lot of talent at Florida, but is Billy Napier in his first year going to be able to get the most out of that talent? Who knows, right? I don't know what we're going to see from that team. I think they'll be better, especially than what they were down the stretch last year with Dan Mullen. I mean, that team just gave up. Looking at this one objectively, I know it's traditionally been a tough place for South Carolina to play. I would think they're probably going to lose at Florida. I think Florida will be a lot better, especially on the lines of scrimmage. I think they'll be more disciplined under Napier. Whether they're going to be a whole hell of a lot better or not, I don't know. But I still think this team will show a lot more poise and promise than it did, especially in the second half of the season last year under Dan Mullen, who was basically, just a lame duck coach at that point. November 19th, Tennessee at home. Yeah. Again, another monkey off the back game. This one is going to do huge things if South Carolina can win this one, regardless of where Tennessee is at this point in the season. This is game number 11. Regardless, of where Tennessee comes in 2-8, which it's not going to happen, or Tennessee comes in at 7-1, 7-2, whatever. If South Carolina can win this one, it's going to be a huge monkey off their back. South Carolina has lost multiple times to Tennessee in the last 10 to 12 years, where South Carolina was the better team. They were the better team than Tennessee, but still found a way to lose to them. That's another one that's kind of in their head a little bit. It's not kind of as bad as the Texas A&M syndrome, but it's kind of there. It's kind of there. Last year's performance on the road at Knoxville in the first half was absolutely awful. I was at that point about to burn all my Gamecock shit. I was so freaking mad because this is another one. This is another one that looks like a Norfolk Southern engine coming towards you, looks like a Lionel toy train coming towards everybody else. What the fuck? Vanderbilt played Tennessee better in Neyland Stadium than South Carolina did. Put that in your fat pipe and smoke it. They just did. So, this one with new quarterback, some new skill position players, more confidence, home game, a lot riding on it. South Carolina's winning this game. They're winning this game. Tennessee likes to think of themselves as a blue blood. They're kind of like, what they kind of like. They're kind of like one of them old women trying to look young. You know what I'm saying? They're kind of like I don't know. They're kind of like a Tammy Faye Baker. They make themselves up to try to think that they're back to where they were in their prime. And when you talk about their prime, Tennessee to me is, I mean, that's not a blue blood football program. It's not a Michigan. It's not a Notre Dame. It's not a Nebraska. I mean, you're just not. You weren't good for decades and decades and decades. You were really good in the 90s and in the early 2000s, okay? You were really good then you fell apart. You fell the fuck apart. You've been nothing for 20 years. In the 80s, you were a bit above average. You know, for the majority of the 70s, at some points you were a little bit above average to average. And then before that, I mean, you won a couple of dusty national championships back in the 40s under this General Neal. You know, nobody gives a fuck about that anymore. I mean, they really don't. So to me, you're not a college football blue blood. You know, they're just like, well, it's our time to you know, we're coming back. I mean, you know, I mean, this is the year, you know, we begin this turnaround and get back to being blue blood status. You know, no, you're not blue blood status. You're a team that has had an average last 20 years, and you had a pretty good to above average 40 years before that. You ain't shit. Okay, I mean, in the annals of college football, when I think back, Miami triggers, you know, more of a reaction from me than what you clowns do. I mean, it really does. So I mean, at least I made a 30-30 about them, right? So South Carolina beats Tennessee here. You know, get that offense figured out. You know, play better defensively, and you'll beat them. Last one, Clemson road game, another monkey. You need to get the monkey off your back here. 7 losses in a row. I mean, 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 21. 7 losses in a row to this team. Would have been 8 if you'd have played them in 2020. Let's just go ahead and say it. That's bad. I mean, it's bad, and 2 of those have been competitive. 2 of them have been competitive in the fourth quarter. The rest of them has been horrible. I mean, I remember sitting there in 2014 with my son watching the first time when Clemson took South Carolina down for the first time since 2008, and I was just speechless because I knew it was bound to happen at some point in time with the ease that they did it with, and it was just embarrassing to watch. I mean, it really was. You know, and last year, I mean, I think South Carolina got a hold of Clemson at the wrong time. I mean, I think that they were starting to come into their own. You know, they were riding that huge win over Wake Forest into this one, and thought they still had a chance at making that ACC championship game. Of course, they didn't. But, you know, defensively, Clemson was very strong, even without some of the player like Brian Brzee, who was injured for, you know, 90% of the year. And they just shut South Carolina down. I mean, and there was nothing you could do. And for all that he did those last few games of the season, Jason Downtown Brown, we'll never forget him. I mean, he did a good job for him. But, I mean, in reality, I mean, when he got out there against a team like Clemson, I mean, he could do nothing. And so that's what I'm going to remember him for. I'm going to remember him for him looking like an absolute goof, throwing 2 picks to Andrew Booth, a player I can't stand, and just shitting the bed. I'm going to remember the defense. It was bending but not breaking, and you know, they did the best they could, in my opinion, with an offense that did absolutely nothing to help them out. You know, I won't forget the little missed shoestring tackle on Will Shitley, a little shithead running back they got. Yeah, that's another monkey needs to come off the back. It really needs to come off the back. I'm throwing that one in there right now and saying it's probably going to be a loss, and probably will, but you know, with Spencer Rattler and that crew coming in, I mean, I don't know. I don't know by that time in the season what the mindset's going to be. I don't know what the rosters are going to look like because, you know, as much as I talk about Luke Day and I sung his praises, there's no guarantee that we won't just have freak injuries by that time in the season. So, you know, it just remains to be seen what we're going to be dealing with, but I would probably chalk that one up as a loss if I were a betting man right now. And I am a betting man, but I bet on something 6 months in the future, or 8, 9 months in the future. So anyway, if you compile all that together, add it up, hit your add machine and, move your fingers around a little bit, you come up with a 6-6 record. It could easily slip to 5-7. South Carolina could lose the game to Missouri. They definitely could lose the game to Tennessee. That's not anything that I'm real sure of. I mean, but they could slip up there and they could win a couple of those you don't expect them to, and they could finally do something. They could win the ones you expect them to, and then they could win a couple you don't expect them to. Okay, I think 8-4 is probably the ceiling for this team next year. Is that a more talented team than it was in 2021? Yes, it's a more talented team. The roster is going to be more talented top to bottom. Is it an ultra talented team? No. That is going to be built through recruiting. It's going to be built through recruiting. And coming in 25th, with the 25th ranked class in 2022, that we just finished up. I mean, it's nice, but, that Spencer Rattler and that Austin Stodner, I mean, those guys kind of counted towards that a little bit. We need to do a little better than 25th. I think that was good for 10th in the SEC. It's better than you, Arkansas. But, not better. I mean, you have Missouri out here out recruiting you. That shouldn't happen. It just should not in any facet of college football. Missouri should not be out recruiting South Carolina. So, with that being said, there are a lot of positives. I mean, a lot of positives coming with the Shane Beamer thing. But there are still a lot of holes that need to be plugged. There really are. We've got to recruit better. We've got to get the best in-state kids. Letting this Williams dude from Dutch Fork High School go to Clemson. I mean, that was a huge loss. And, I get it that Clemson was his dream offer. Wouldn't be my dream offer. It sounded like more of a damn nightmare to me. But, that's what he wanted. And so that one is understandable. But you've got to build a rapport with some more of these kids starting in the 8th, 9th grade and really start winning these games that we're supposed to win consistently year in, year out. So you don't have that, fuck up drop off season where you lose these people. Just start building a solid foundation. Be consistent. That's what we need. Consistency. I think that's the word of 2022 as far as my Gamecocks go, is consistency. And so that's kind of my unbiased take on what I'm seeing and kind of what I expect going into 2022. Spring practice is right around the corner. I can't wait. I'm going in a couple of weeks to see South Carolina absolutely beat the bejesus out of those tater shits on the diamond down at Segra Park in Columbia, the pearl that is the oyster of the state of South Carolina. So I'm really, really looking forward to that stuff, guys. But before I get out of here, I wanted to. He's been sitting over there quietly this whole time. I've been sitting there snickering at me and everything else. My cousin, Craig, is here. Hold on just a second, okay? You fat fuck. We call him Clemson Craig. And he wanted to get on here and he wanted to run his mouth a little bit. Like he says, I like to get on here and run my mouth a lot. Well, let me have the floor for just a second. Craig has a few things. Y'all ain't never seen me before. My name's Craig. I'm a Clemson fan. And that one over there, that Kyle, they call him Kale or whatever his damn name is, like to call himself just Carolina Jackpot. Loser, man. Loser. You know why he's always talking about this right here? You know why he always talking about Clemson? Because losers like to talk about winners and like to think about winners. Sitting over here drinking that old piss water Miller Lite. This right here is the champagne of beers. The champagne of beers drunk by champions. That is, national champions. Him talking about this Clemson thing, talking about it's a, what was it that some bitch said? What was it? Somebody said a monkey off the back game. Monkey off the back game. Your little coach over there looked like a little monkey trying to be like Dabo, trying to recruit like Dabo and talk like him and kind of develop his little persona. Look here. Y'all are, you cheap imposters. That's what you is, a cheap imposter of not only a coach, but a program and a college football team, period. Like you thought 30-0 was bad this past year. Son, we took it easy on y'all's ass. We took it easy on y'all's ass. The shit could have been 56-0. Clemson just didn't want, I mean, it's becoming boring. I mean, it really is. It really is. You say this thing was more than a rivalry. It's a domination. And Coots won't sit here and laugh about it because they won 2 or 3 games in a row against Clemson when we had down years. It's true. I mean, it's a domination. I mean, look at the thing, and the thing that's got the orange on it, and then their little chicken shit red, garnet, burgundy, whatever you got. With the score when the Clemson won, which there's a lot of that. They almost run out of orange paint to do that thing up. I mean, it's all orange. It's a domination. And I don't know what happened to him. I really don't. I don't know if his mama was drinking too much Lowenbrow back in the 70s, you know, when he was conceived. Or, you know, if his daddy, some of that Vitalis hair shit that he put in to try to slick his hair back to try to look as good as my daddy did, his brother, he couldn't do it. I don't know if he got some of that ingested in him and, you know, that made him some kind of alcoholic. But this boy right here, crazy. He's crazy. I mean, you pulling for a losing football team, a losing basketball team, and when we ain't even no good, we one of the worst basketball teams in the ACC and whoop y'all's ass every time we play you. And in baseball, I mean, it ain't even close. Ooh, we won a couple of college, the World Series a couple of times. Well, guess what? I mean, Clemson done on your ass about 40 games up on that thing. So, I mean, really, I mean, you ain't got no room to really even talk. I mean, you really just shouldn't even mention us when you're doing these little old preseason hype videos. Because Clemson don't even belong. And other than Georgia, who we couldn't beat, the rest of your schedule, Clemson would run through it like shit through a screen fence. They go 11-1. I mean, you play the most taffy schedule on the most taffy side of the Southeastern Conference. And quite frankly, I don't know why they done kept you around there. They ought to be embarrassed to have you. I wouldn't have you at my party if I was hosting one and college football conferences was a party. I'll tell you that right now. But you go on ahead, keep on flapping your yap and talking your shit over there, killing your Miller Lights and your liquor and everything else during your live streams all year long, sitting here passing out. I mean, I'll be honest with you though, dude. I don't blame you. I don't blame you one bit, because if I had to watch that year in and year out, I mean, I'd be on something stronger than peanut butter whiskey and damn watered ass urine tasting Miller Lite. I will tell you that right now. That's a fact, Jack. But I'll be back later on as we get closer to college football season and everything. You know, Clemson Craig will, because quite honestly, my name's Craig. You know that I damn sure ain't got no job. You know damn sure it's Friday at my place 7 days a week, and you know damn sure I ain't got shit to do except pull for this right here, baby. He needs to take that sticker off that hat of his. It's exactly what he needs to do. This is where it's at right here, baby. Gamecocks all the way. Woo! Go Cox, go Coach Beamer. Clemson. Get on back over here, jerk. Another L was dropped off over this way. I'm going to need you to hold it. You good at that.